The broken champion, the metal floor was cold beneath Zara's bare feet as alien guards pushed her forward into the holding area. Her dark hair hung in tangled waves around her shoulders, and her green eyes blazed with defiance despite the energy. Shackles around her wrists. The auction house buzzed with excitement as hundreds of alien species gathered to bid on the latest batch of human slaves. Fresh from the outer colonies, announced the auctioneer, a slug-like creature with multiple eyes. This one has spirit, perfect for the arena or personal entertainment. Zara's stomach turned as grotesque beings leaned forward in their seats, making crude gestures and calling out bids in languages she didn't understand. She'd been a fighter pilot before Earth's colonies fell, before the great surrender that scattered humanity across the galaxy. Now she was just another piece of merchandise. From the shadows of a reinforcement cage, Captain Jackson watched through, swollen eyes. His once-proud military uniform was torn and blood-stained, his brown hair matted with dirt. The aliens had captured his entire unit 3 months ago, using them as entertainment in their brutal games. Most of his men were already dead, but when Zara was dragged onto the platform, something stirred in his chest that he thought had died with his last hope. She stood tall, despite everything, her chin raised in defiance, even chained and helpless. She radiated the kind of strength that had once made humanity great. Their eyes met across the crowded space. In that moment, something passed between them. Recognition, understanding, a spark of connection that transcended their desperate circumstances. Zara's breath caught as she saw the quiet determination in his gaze. This wasn't just another broken prisoner. This was a warrior who hadn't given up. 1,000 credits, shouted a reptilian buyer, his forked tongue flicking hungrily. 2,000, countered another, this one covered in spikes and reeking of sulfur. As the bidding escalated, Jackson shifted in his cage. The guards had grown lazy, confident that the humans were too beaten to cause trouble. They didn't notice him testing the weakness in his restraints that he'd been working on for weeks. His fingers found the loose coupling he'd discovered, the one that might give him just enough freedom. When the time came, Zara tried not to show her fear as the bids climbed higher. Each increase meant a worse fate, she knew. The louder they shouted, the more depraved their intentions. But every time, panic threatened to overwhelm her. She looked back at the caged human. His steady gaze seemed to say, "Hold on, be ready." The auctioneer raised his appendages for silence. Final bid? 5,000 credits to Lord Vexstar of the Crimson Fleet. A massive insectoid creature clicked its mandibles in pleasure already, imagining its new prize. But as the guards moved to transfer Zara to her new owner, the lights suddenly flickered. Emergency alarms began to wail throughout the station. In the confusion that followed, Jackson made his move. Whispers in the dark, the station-wide alarm had been a stroke of luck. A reactor malfunction that sent guards scrambling and buyers fleeing to their ships. In the chaos, Jackson had managed to break free from his restraints and disappear into the maintenance tunnels that honeycombed the massive auction house. Now, it was 3 days later. He crouched in the ventilation shaft above Zara's holding cell. She sat alone in the cramped space, her back against the wall, staring at nothing. Lord Vexstar had decided to keep his purchase on the station for a few days while his ship underwent repairs, a delay that gave Jackson the opportunity he needed. "Don't. Look up," he whispered through the grating above her head. Zara's eyes widened, but she kept staring straight ahead. "I thought you were dead," she breathed. "Not yet," Jackson replied softly. "What's your name?" "Zara Chen, former lieutenant in the Earth Defense Corps." "You?" "Captain Jackson Rivers. Same unit structure." "I saw your ship go down over Kepler 4 for her to be." She closed her eyes. "My whole squadron was lost. I thought I was the only survivor." Her voice cracked slightly. "I've been running for 8 months, hiding on freight ships, stealing food, till they caught me on Tython Station." Jackson's heart clenched at the pain in her voice. "You're not alone anymore, Zara. I'm going to get you out of here." "How?" she whispered. "This place is a fortress. There are hundreds of guards and my buyer. ... Double quotes." She shuddered. Vexstar has already made his intentions clear. He wants to break me slowly. I've been mapping the station for months, Jackson said. There's a way out through the waste processing plant. Connects to the docking bays where smaller ships are stored. We just need the right moment. Over the next 2 nights, they talked in whispers whenever the guards weren't near. Zara told him about her childhood on Earth, how she dreamed of exploring the stars before the war changed everything. Jackson shared memories of his family farm in Montana, the wide-open spaces that seemed impossible now in this metal prison. Among the stars. Do you remember what Earth smelled like? Zara asked on the 3rd night. Rain on fresh soil, Jackson replied without hesitation. My mother's apple pie, cooling on the windowsill. Pine trees in the mountains. Tears slipped down Zara's cheeks. I used to think I'd forgotten, but talking to you, ... It's all coming back. Something warm and protective swelled in Jackson's chest. This brave, beautiful woman deserved better than to waste away in alien hands. They both did. Humanity deserved better. Tomorrow night, he said. Vexstar is taking you to his ship then. It's our only chance. What if we don't make it? Zara's voice was small. Then at least we'll face it together, Jackson said firmly. I won't let you go through this alone. In the darkness of her cell, Zara pressed her palm against the floor above, her head imagining she could touch his hand through the metal. The plan fell apart before it began. As Jackson waited in the shadows near the waste processing plant, armed guards dragged both him and Zara to the station's central arena. Lord Vexstar had discovered Jackson's presence and decided that watching his new slave's fellow human die in combat would be the perfect way to break her spirit. The arena was a massive circular pit, surrounded by thousands of screaming alien spectators. Energy barriers hummed around the perimeter, keeping the combatants trapped inside. Jackson was thrown into the sand first, given only a rusty blade and minimal armor that barely fit his human frame. First, we test the male's worthiness, Vexstar announced from his luxury box, mandibles clicking with amusement. If he survives 3 challenges, perhaps I will grant him a quick death instead of selling him to the torture pits. Zara was chained to a viewing platform where she had no choice but to watch. Her heart hammered as Jackson rose to his feet in the arena below, testing the weight of his weapon. Even from this distance, she could see the determination in his posture. The first opponent was a Thraxian berserker, 8 feet tall and covered in natural armor plating. The crowd roared as it charged at Jackson with bone-crushing claws extended. But Jackson had fought these creatures before. He rolled aside at the last second, slicing his blade across the berserker's ankle tendon. The massive alien crashed to the ground, and Jackson finished it with a quick thrust to the base of its skull. Impossible, Vexstar hissed. Ow! Bring out the Nexus Stalker. The second creature was faster, a cat-like predator that could phase in and out of visibility. Jackson stood perfectly still in the center of the arena, eyes closed, listening. When the stalker materialized behind him for the killing strike, he was already turning, his blade finding its heart in one smooth motion. Zara found herself leaning forward, pride and terror warring in her chest. This was the man she'd been falling for through their whispered conversations, strong, clever, utterly fearless when protecting others. For the 3rd challenge, Vexstar's eyes glittered with malice. Since you fight so desperately to reach the female, let us see how well you protect her. Guards unlocked Zara's chains and shoved her into the arena. She landed hard in the sand beside Jackson, who immediately moved to shield her with his body. I'm sorry, he said softly, helping her to her feet. This wasn't supposed to happen. I can fight, she replied, picking up a fallen weapon. I'm not helpless. The gates opened and 3 Korthok warriors entered, professional gladiators bred for killing. They separated immediately, trying to flank the humans from different angles. Jackson and Zara moved instinctively back to back, their bodies fitting together perfectly, despite never having fought as a team before. At Zara, Jackson caught it with a crosswise slash that sent alien blood spraying across the sand. Zara spun and drove her blade into the second warrior's exposed side. The 3rd Korthok was more cautious, circling them slowly. The crowd had gone quiet, sensing something special in this partnership between the humans. Stay close, Jackson murmured, his hand briefly touching the small of Zara's back. Always, she replied, meaning far more than just the fight. They moved. Like they'd been fighting together for years. When Jackson feinted left, Zara flowed right. When she rolled beneath a crushing blow, he was there to cover her retreat. The final Korthok warrior found itself facing not two separate opponents, but a single deadly unit. The crowd erupted as the last gladiator fell. Even the alien spectators had to admit they'd witnessed something remarkable to humans who fought, not just with skill, but with absolute trust in each other. But Vextar was not pleased. Enough games, he snarled, rising from his seat. Guards, know the male and bring me the female. Now, armed soldiers poured into the arena from multiple entrances. Jackson grabbed Zara's hand, pulling her toward the far wall where a maintenance hatch had been left partially open, probably by a careless worker, but it might be their only chance. This way, he shouted over the chaos. They dove through the narrow opening just as energy blasts scorched the sand behind them. The maintenance tunnel was cramped and dark, forcing them to crawl single file through twisting passages that led deeper into the station's infrastructure. Finally, they emerged in what looked like an abandoned storage bay. Jackson sealed the access hatch behind them, while Zara collapsed against a stack of cargo containers, breathing hard. "We can't keep running like this," she said. "There's nowhere to go." Jackson knelt beside her, his hands gently cupping her face. In the dim, emergency lighting, her green eyes seemed to glow. "And we make our stand here," he said quietly. "At least we're together." Something shifted in the air between them, all the whispered conversations, the shared memories, the way they'd fought as one in the arena. Zara's hands covered his, holding them against her cheeks. "Jackson," she whispered. He leaned forward slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. But she met him halfway, their lips touching in a kiss that tasted of hope and defiance, and something deeper than either had expected to find in this dark place when they broke apart.
Oh.
Zara's eyes were bright, with tears. "I never thought I'd feel like this again. After losing everything, I thought my heart was dead." "Mine too," Jackson admitted, stroking her hair. "But you brought it back to life." Outside their hiding place, they could hear search parties moving through the corridors. It wouldn't be long before they were found. "If this is all we have," Zara said, pulling him down beside her, "if this is our only night, ... It won't be," Jackson promised, but his hands were already tracing the curve of her jaw, her neck memorizing every detail. "We're going to have a lifetime of nights, a home, a future. Promise me?" She breathed against his lips. "Promise," he said, and sealed it with another kiss that spoke of forever, even if forever might only be a few hours away. They held each other through the darkest hours, sharing warmth and whispered promises in their makeshift shelter. But as the station's artificial dawn cycle began, Jackson knew they couldn't hide much longer. The search parties were getting closer, their alien voices echoing through the maintenance corridors. There, Zara pointed to a ventilation grate high on the wall. "That shaft connects to the main air recycling plant. If we can reach it..." Jackson boosted her up, then followed, squeezing through the narrow space. They crawled for what felt like hours through the maze of ducts and pipes, guided only by the faint current of recycled air. Finally, they emerged in the recycling center, a vast chamber filled with humming machinery, and there, in the shadows between two massive air processors, sat a small maintenance craft. Its hull was scarred and old, but the engines looked functional. "You fly that?" Jackson asked. Zara grinned for the first time since her capture. "I can fly anything with wings or engines. Question is, where do we go?" "Earth is gone. The colonies are under alien control." "There," Jackson pointed to a star chart displayed on the wall. "The frontier sector. It's mostly unexplored, too far out for the major powers to bother with. There are rumors of other human survivors forming settlements out there." As if summoned by their voices, the storage bay doors burst open. Vextar himself led the charge, flanked by a dozen armed guards, his compound eyes fixed on the two humans with undisguised rage. "Did you think you could escape me?" he chittered. "I will make you both suffer for this insult." Jackson stepped in front of Zara, raising his stolen weapon. You want her? You go through me first, gladly Vexter hissed, signaling his guards to advance. The firefight was brief but brutal. Jackson and Zara fought back to back again, their movements perfectly synchronized. When Jackson stumbled under a guard's club, Zara was there with covering fire. When she was pinned down behind a console, he drew fire away from her position. In the end, it was Zara who ended it. While Vexstar was focused on Jackson, she slipped around behind the insectoid lord and drove her blade between his carapace plates. The alien fell with a gurgling shriek that sent his remaining guards fleeing. "Go!" Jackson shouted, hauling her toward the maintenance craft. Before more show up. The small ship's engines roared to life under Zara's skilled hands. They blasted through the station's outer hull into open space, leaving the auction house. Spinning in their wake, as they jumped to hyperspace toward the frontier sector, Jackson pulled Zara close in the pilot seat. Through the cockpit window, stars stretched into brilliant lines of light, paths to a new future they would build together. "What do you think we'll find out there?" Zara asked, leaning against his chest. "Home," Jackson said simply. "Whatever we need to build it and each other is enough." She turned in his arms and kissed him again, this time with the promise of all the tomorrows they would share. Behind them, the last remnants of their old lives faded into darkness. Ahead lay the infinite possibilities of love and freedom among the stars in the frontier colonies. They would indeed find other survivors. They would help build a new settlement, teach others to fight and survive, and eventually they would marry under twin suns on a world they helped make safe for humanity's future. But that story would have to wait for another day.